Growing up as a kid in Ireland, we had pretty much 0% immigration. I was the brownest person 4 miles. Just a hint of a tan. They were like, look at him, suspicious. And now we have 17% immigration, and we are one of the only countries in the whole world that doesn't have a single political party in Parliament opposing immigration. One of the only ones. We can't, because we have shagged our way into all your family trees. Many of you don't even know it. Until that day, you get your DNA test results. You're like, look at that. I'm like, 23% Irish. This whole time, I thought it was a Filipino. 3 years ago, we became the first country in the whole world, by popular vote, to legalize gay marriage. One of the most steeped in Catholicism countries ever put it to the people and went, gay marriage, what do you think? And collectively, we went, yeah, feck it, why not? Go on there. And to put that into perspective, in 1993, homosexuality was actually illegal in Ireland. And then the year before last, we found a guy who's half Indian and gay and made him prime minister. And then you go to places like America, where I live at the moment, and still they're debating having their first female president. In Ireland, we've had 21 years of female presidents. We were the first country in the whole world to have back-to-back female presidents. We've moved on to gay, half-Indian people. We're woke as feck over there. We don't even have Chinatown in Ireland. We let them live with us. All these things have happened in a fraction of my lifetime. Like, our lives are full of huge changes, big, huge changes, all the time, all around us. But for some reason, when it comes to one particular thing, one particular feeling, we assume it can't really be changed. Fear. So, I did a bit of an experiment a while ago. It was to do the thing I feared the most every single day for a year. It was a horrendous plan. Especially because when I went to university, my nickname was Shakin' Stevens. And after the musical icon, I suppose, if you like it, at the time. And it wasn't for the musical ability. I don't know if you've ever had it when you stand in front of a group of people and you have to speak, or you're holding a bit of paper and you're speaking and you're like, why is that piece of paper moving? Why am I shaking while I'm speaking? That happened for me every time, and it was even worse. It kind of went through my body, so the shaking went into my shoulders, down through my hips, and I was just involuntarily becoming a kind of Irish salsa dancer. And it was so bad that people would come to see it. That's a pretty Irish thing where they're like, look at him, going to pieces. We better see that. And I should have known, I should have remembered that it was possible to change this. For some reason, I think for a lot of us, when it comes to fear, we forget. We forget that we have the power to somehow change that. And sometimes you just need that catalyst to drive change. And for me, unfortunately, it came in the worst possible way. A friend of mine, Arash, who was the most outdoorsy and athletic person I've ever met, within the space of 96 hours, went from hiking the John Muir Trail in California to lying in the John Muir Hospital, surrounded by doctors telling him he'd never walk again after suffering a severe spinal cord injury. He didn't want to accept that prognosis. None of his friends wanted to accept that prognosis, so they all rallied to do fundraisers on his behalf to get him to his goal of getting back on his feet again. And it kind of rubbed off on me, and I was like, well, maybe I could do something to help. So I organized, I just happened to know a comedian who lived next door to me, and I was like, if I did a comedy show, charity show, would you do it? And he said yes. So I went to my friend Arish, and I was like, let's do this comedy show to raise some funds. And he's like, that's a great idea, man. He's like, you're going to host it. I was like, oh no. He didn't know about the whole Shakin' Stevens thing. Up to that moment, I would have described public speaking as my biggest fear and as a crippling fear. But when you're stood there and your friend sat there in a wheelchair looking at you, that is not the term you ever feel right about using again for a fear. It just made it seem a little bit ridiculous. And I was like, especially like Irish people en masse, fair to say, we hate public speaking. But Irish people en masse, we love speaking. We love it. You'll be like, do you ever speak to people? Oh yeah, all the time, yeah. Do you ever do that in public? Oh, absolutely, yeah. Public speaking? Oh no. Not doing that. All of a sudden it just felt nonsensical. So it was kind of time to at least try and get over this nonsensical fear. But who do you ask for help? Or like, who are the masters of this topic? Or where do you go to? And for me, I was a big fan of the theory popularized by Malcolm Gladwell, that it takes 10,000 hours doing something to make someone a master. So I was like, well, who are the masters of this public speaking stuff? And the answer seemed unconventional, but obvious. I was like, surely stand-up comedians are doing this more than anybody else. Surely they know a lot about it. It turns out the average stand-up comedian on the way to making an income from doing stand-up comedy, if they're good, it takes them on average about 7 years to make an income from stand-up comedy. The ones who are dedicated, they estimate spend about 4 hours a day in some way, shape, or form working on their craft. 4 hours a day, by those 7 years, is roughly those 10,000 hours. And they do it in the worst conditions possible. Like imagine I live in America, someone having a tough day and they're like, oh, I'm having a bit of an emotional day today. I feel a lot of anxiety. I went to a supermarket, they had no avocados. It was horrendous. And I went to Bikram yoga and a guy flatulated. It was just, no, it's just too much for me. I put 4 photos on Instagram, nobody liked them, not even my mother, and now I'm gonna go to this comedy club, make it better, add alcohol, sit there, fold my arms, stare at a person and go, make me laugh. It's like, this sounds like the worst possible environment to do this. So my plan was getting considerably worse as I went along. Not only was I gonna try and do this public speaking for a year, I was going to do stand-up comedy for a year. And for this terrible plan, I blame Americans. They're just a lot more positive than Irish people, unnecessarily sometimes. Like they will support you with anything. You could be like, I'm quitting my job, it's a good job, and I'm going to sell inflatable penguins on the internet. And they're like, God, that's a great plan, man. You should try that. Bring it in. High five. Sometimes you just miss Irish people to be like, cop onto yourself. Get those penguins down off the internet, you're bringing shame to the family. And I got reminded of this, a bit of a social media thing. I posted a little video of myself kite surfing under the Golden Gate Bridge, which I thought, this will get the likes, right? I posted this, and the American comments come in. They were like, dude, that looks awesome, you go. Next comment, oh my God, looks like you had the perfect day. Hope you had a great time. Irish comment, I hope a shark bites your balls off. And that was my mother. So safe to say I wasn't really ready to tell Irish people about the plan that I was having. I needed a way to hide it from them, and it turns out it's quite hard to clock up the stage time needed to get some experience as a comedian if you don't have any experience. So I had to make it look like I'd been around for a while doing comedy. Americans could never really pronounce my last name, which is even a little bit strange by Irish standards, Nihill, so they kept calling me Irish Dave. So I was like, well, there's a stage name that sounds pretty horrendous. The idea was like that I was already good at doing comedy in Ireland. I just happened to be in America for a while, right? So I had to make it look like he was around for a while. So I went, all right, Irish Dave, let's go with that. Made him a website, made him look pretty good online. Facebook page, Facebook fans, which controversially at the time, mildly controversially, you could just buy on the internet. So I was pretty big there for a while. Especially in India. The first book show I did was 5 Ladies and I. That comedy show was called Estrogen Entree with a Side of Balls. I was that side of balls. A very proud moment, as you can imagine. But thankfully, it went up from there, and I started doing all these comedy clubs and shows and festivals, and at the end of that year, I found myself on stage in front of 1,400 people in America's largest storytelling competition, and I'm about to lay an egg. Because after your story, they judge you in front of all the other people. So it's like diving in the Olympics. They actually hold up a scorecard from 0 to 10 about how you just did. That sounds horrendous. That's like you losing your virginity and someone just popping up at the end of your bed and be like, 2. Room for improvement. But the funny thing is that by the end of this time, I was learning a lot. The comedians were learning the hard way. We'd done the charity event for Arash. It went really, really well. Nobody would have noticed Shakin' Stevens. What I was learning through over time and repetition and knowledge from this group of people was not how to overcome a fear, but how to manage a fear, and in my case, how to hide a fear. And I think that's something we get sold on quite a lot in life. Here's the easy way to overcome your fear. You might never overcome it, but just at least tell me how to manage it. Like, stop the Shakin' Stevens bit. And a key part of it was just telling yourself in your head that you are not nervous. Of course you are. The sweating is coming, and I'm like, the salsa dancing's coming back. But people were like, just tell yourself you're excited. So looking out at like 2,000 of you today, I was like, I'm so excited. But so I found myself on stage, 1,400 people, and there's 3 comedians out of 10 in this competition of storytelling. So of course my theory is they're the true masters. They're going to come 1, 2, and 3. And my friend Arash has got wind that I'm in this under the sneaky name Irish Dave, and he's come, so they're all there in the audience. I am laying an egg. I don't have butterflies in my chest, I have pigeons. Like, it's, if you touched my hand before I went on stage, it felt like a mackerel just went like that. I'm telling you, if you hug me, same as today, you feel like you just hugged someone who got out of a shower. You're like, what's going on there? But it was just hiding them, right? So we're doing this competition, and at this stage, I had written a book that I'd self-published about my experience, and I just sold it to a publisher, and they were like, we're going to need a new ending on this. So, and I was like, well, if I win this competition, that could be a good ending. So we're getting to the end of this competition, and 1, 2, and 3, as I anticipated, are the comedians, and I'm winning. And there's only 1 person left. And this lady goes, no comedic background or training, gets on stage and is amazing and kills it. And they are in bits laughing at everything, and she wins. I was like, oh, well, there goes me ending here. And I was like, how did you do that? I was fascinated. I've been studying this for ages, and you just went up and wiped the floor with everybody. And she's like, well, I've been studying comedians a lot, actually, and I've been reading a lot of stuff about it. And I was like, well, what did you read? Tell me. Is there anything that was super helpful? Because I'm about to publish a book on this. And she's like, oh, this one. She pulls up her notes on it. She's like, this book was really helpful. It was called Do You Talk Funny by a guy called David Nihill. I was like, you beat me with my own book. Oh, and I thought, right, that's the end of that. Told a story, and sure enough, a week or so after, this guy contacts me. He's like, hey, would you be interested in doing a TED Talk? I liked your story. Would you like to share it? And I said, ooh, now this would be a good ending. And I was like, wait a minute. I have a friend called Arash, and he's the reason I got into all this mess in the first place, and all this lunacy started. His story is more powerful and better than anyone's I think I've ever heard. Could I send you a little video of him? He did a practice run in front of an audience using comedians' techniques. Could I send you that? Maybe you'd consider booking him. And the guy booked him in my place. And I was there backstage watching when Arash got a 51-second standing ovation as he told everybody how he trained for 1 whole year, but keep it a secret, with the sole goal of standing again on his own 2 feet so he could propose to his beautiful girlfriend eye to eye. He didn't want to do it from his wheelchair. And of course, she said yes. So at the end, he stood up from his wheelchair on stage doing something doctors told me would never do again. She came out and joined them, and the whole place just lost their mind. And I get hairs in the back of my neck standing up just telling you guys about it. The comedy event that we did went on to be a recurring event called Comedy for a Spinal Cause. To date, we've raised, for people with spinal cord injuries, just over $45,000. Arash wrote a book. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Arash wrote a book about his experiences. He started a non-profit. He continues his recovery and continues to be an inspiration around him. 6 weeks from today, in this very hall in Manchester, there's going to be a musical act playing. Ironically, his name is Shakin' Stevens. What are the chances? So if you take nothing away from all this lunacy, it's, our lives are full of change, and a lot of the time we can drive and control that change more than we think, whether it's just some involuntary dancing moves, a feeling that you have, or a whole country. You might not overcome a fear, but with help with the right people, I believe you can learn to manage it. Public speaking, at the end of the day, if it's one of your biggest fears, like it's mine and so many other people's out there, try and tell yourself you're excited, no matter how many people are looking at you. Remember, at the end of the day, it's just you sharing your story. You know it better than anyone else, and you never know what will happen when you tell it. And if you need help along the way, ask a comedian. I believe they're the world's true masters. So thank you very much. Thank you.